"Mom, I wouldn't miss your surgery for anything. My son Ryan promised me over the phone the night before I was admitted to the hospital." At the time, I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my only child, the boy I had raised, protected, and loved through every season of his life. Even at 72 years old, hearing his voice still carried a comfort that reminded me of the little boy who used to reach for my hand whenever he was scared. My surgery was scheduled for 7 o'clock on a Thursday morning. It wasn't an emergency, but it wasn't minor either. My doctor had spent weeks explaining the procedure and the recovery process. He was optimistic, but at my age, every operation comes with questions no one can answer in advance. The evening before, I packed my overnight bag carefully. A robe, slippers, reading glasses, a framed photograph of my late husband, Thomas. Before going to bed, I placed the picture on my nightstand and stared at his familiar smile. "I wish you were here," I whispered. "You always knew how to make these things less frightening." The next morning arrived cold and gray. The hospital lobby smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. Nurses moved efficiently through the halls while families gathered around waiting areas holding cups, jackets, and nervous expressions. I noticed something as I checked in. Almost everyone had someone with them. A spouse, a daughter, a friend, someone holding a hand or offering reassurance. I told myself Ryan would be there soon. Traffic could be unpredictable. He lived nearly 40 miles away. There were plenty of reasonable explanations. By 6:30, I was sitting alone in the pre-operative room wearing a hospital gown and a pair of thick socks. The television mounted on the wall played a morning news program that I wasn't really watching. I checked my phone. No message. I checked again 10 minutes later. Still nothing. A nurse named Grace entered carrying a clipboard and a warm smile. She introduced herself and reviewed a few routine questions. Her kindness reminded me of the nurses who had cared for Thomas during his final illness years earlier. "Do you have family coming this morning?" she asked gently. "My son," I said. "He promised he'd be here." She smiled. "That's nice. It always helps having someone close by." After she left, I stared at the clock. 6:45, then 6:50, then 6:55. The room felt quieter with every passing minute. I picked up my phone again. Nothing. No call. No text. No explanation. I tried to stay calm. Ryan had always been busy. He worked in commercial real estate and often traveled to networking events and business gatherings. Sometimes he forgot birthdays. Sometimes he canceled plans at the last minute. But this was different. At least that's what I wanted to believe. At 7:10, Grace returned with another nurse. They began preparing me for the procedure. As they adjusted equipment and reviewed paperwork, I kept glancing toward the door. Any second now, I thought. Any second. Finally, Grace looked up from the chart and asked a simple question. "Is your son still coming?" I forced a smile. He said he would. My voice sounded smaller than I intended. Grace nodded politely and continued working. A few moments later, my phone vibrated. Relief washed over me so quickly that I almost laughed. "Ryan," I thought. "He's finally calling." But when I unlocked the screen, there was no missed call. No apology. No explanation. Only silence. Outside the room, I could hear distant conversations and rolling carts moving through the hallway. Inside, I sat alone beneath the fluorescent lights, staring at a phone that refused to ring. For the first time that morning, a thought entered my mind that I immediately tried to push away. What if my son wasn't coming at all? The doors of the operating room closed behind me before I had time to think about that question for very long. The next thing I remember was waking up hours later beneath soft lighting and the steady rhythm of machines quietly monitoring my recovery. My throat felt dry. My body felt heavy. For a few seconds, I simply stared at the ceiling, trying to remember where I was. Then the events of the morning returned. The empty chair, the silent phone, the unanswered messages. I turned my head slowly toward the corner of the room. No familiar face was waiting there. No son. No family. Just a vase with a few flowers from the hospital gift shop and a chair that had clearly remained untouched all day. A moment later, Grace stepped into the room carrying a small cup of iced chips. Her smile appeared immediately when she saw my eyes open. "Welcome back," she said gently. "Your surgery went very well." I thanked her and accepted the cup. The ice felt wonderful against my throat. "How long was I asleep?" I asked. "Several hours," she replied. "The doctor is very pleased with the results." I nodded. Then I glanced toward the door again before I could stop myself. Grace noticed. Nurses notice everything. No visitors yet, she said carefully. I managed another smile. My son is probably busy. The words sounded less convincing than they had that morning. Grace did not challenge me. She simply adjusted my blanket and asked if I needed anything. That small kindness stayed with me long after she left the room. The afternoon passed quietly. Nurses came and went. Vital signs were checked. Medications were delivered. The television played without holding my attention. Every so often I reached for my phone. Still nothing. Around 6 o'clock that evening, a text message finally appeared. My heart lifted for a brief moment. Then I opened it. Hope everything went well. Been a crazy day. That was all. No apology. No explanation. No question about how I was feeling. Just 12 words. I stared at the screen for a long time. I read the message twice. Then a third time. After everything, that was what he chose to send. I placed the phone on the bedside table and looked out the window. The sun was beginning to set behind the buildings across the street, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and gold. Years ago, Ryan would have driven through a snowstorm to be beside me. I remembered scraped knees, school plays, baseball games, college applications. I remembered working extra shifts after Thomas lost his job during a difficult year. I remembered sacrifices that felt natural because they were made for family. Parents rarely keep score. At least the good ones do not. We simply give because love asks us to. Yet as darkness slowly settled outside the hospital window, a quiet discomfort began forming inside me. It was not anger. Not yet. It was something deeper. A realization that I had spent years excusing behavior that I would never have accepted from anyone else. Near 8 o'clock, Grace returned to check on me before the end of her shift. She asked how I was feeling and whether my family planned to visit the next day. I hesitated before answering. I am not sure, I said honestly. For the first time all day, I heard the truth in my own voice. Grace squeezed my shoulder gently and wished me a peaceful night. After she left, the room became quiet again. I reached for my phone one last time before turning off the lamp. No new messages had arrived. I set the phone face down on the table. Then I closed my eyes and wondered why a complete stranger had shown me more care in a single day than my own son had managed to show me when I needed him most. The next morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through the hospital blinds. I had slept only in short stretches, waking every few hours to the sounds of footsteps in the hallway and distant conversations at the nurse's station. Each time I opened my eyes, I glanced toward the chair beside my bed. Each time, it remained empty. By mid-morning, I had accepted that Ryan was not coming. Acceptance did not make it hurt less. It simply made the silence easier to understand. Grace stopped by shortly after breakfast, carrying fresh coffee for herself and a small tray for me. We talked for a few minutes about ordinary things. The weather, her garden, a television show her mother enjoyed. There was something comforting about those simple conversations. She never asked questions that felt intrusive. She never treated me like a burden. She simply showed up. Around noon, while I was slowly walking the recovery corridor with assistants, I noticed other patients receiving visitors. One woman had 3 generations of family crowded around her room. Another man was laughing with friends who had driven several hours just to see him. I found myself smiling for them while feeling an unexpected heaviness inside. Years ago, I would have been surrounded by family too. At least that was what I had always imagined. Later that afternoon, Grace entered my room carrying medication records. She seemed distracted, not upset exactly, just thoughtful. As she organized paperwork on the counter, her phone lit up briefly on the desk beside her. I was not trying to look. The screen simply caught my attention. There was a photograph displayed for only a second before she picked up the phone. Even in that brief moment, I recognized the face immediately. Ryan. My son stood smiling beside Vanessa beneath sparkling lights. Both were dressed elegantly. People surrounded them holding glasses and posing for photographs. The background looked like a luxury resort or private event venue. Grace immediately realized what I had seen. Her expression changed. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "I did not mean for you to see that." I looked away. "It is all right." She hesitated. "Would you like me to show you?" For a moment, I considered saying no. Part of me wanted to protect the version of Ryan I had carried in my heart for decades. But another part was tired of protecting illusions. "Yes," I said. Grace handed me the phone. The image came from a public social media post. Ryan and Vanessa stood beneath crystal chandeliers at what appeared to be a charity gala hosted by a wealthy business owner whose name I vaguely recognized from local news stories. There were dozens of photographs, live music, fine dining, smiling guests, perfectly staged moments. I checked the timestamp. My stomach tightened. The photographs had been posted while I was being prepared for surgery. Another image appeared, then another. In every picture, Ryan looked relaxed, confident, completely present. There was no sign that his mother had been undergoing a major medical procedure that same morning. I handed the phone back without saying a word. Grace looked as though she wanted to apologize for something that was not her fault. "Thank you," I said softly. She nodded and left me alone. For several minutes, I sat beside the window watching clouds drift across the afternoon sky. No tears came. Surprisingly, neither did anger. What arrived instead was clarity. For the first time, I stopped asking why Ryan had not come. The photographs had answered that question. The harder question now was why I had spent so many years refusing to see what had been right in front of me. The following day, my recovery became easier physically and more difficult emotionally. The doctors were pleased with my progress. They encouraged short walks through the hallway and assured me that everything was healing as expected. My body was moving forward. My heart seemed determined to remain behind, sorting through memories I had ignored for far too long. When life becomes busy, people explain away disappointments. One missed visit becomes an unfortunate scheduling conflict. One forgotten birthday becomes a simple mistake. One canceled holiday becomes a work obligation. Looking back from that hospital room, I began to see how those explanations had slowly accumulated over the years. They sat in my memory like unopened boxes. Now, one by one, they were opening. I remembered my 70th birthday dinner. Ryan had promised to arrive by 6 o'clock. Vanessa had assured me they would not miss it. I spent the afternoon preparing recipes that had been family favorites for decades. The candles burned low. The food grew cold. At 8:30, a text message arrived explaining that an unexpected networking opportunity had come up. I accepted the excuse immediately. I always did. Then there was Thanksgiving 2 years earlier. Ryan and Vanessa decided to spend the holiday with business associates at a resort nearly 300 miles away. They promised we would celebrate together another weekend. That weekend never came. Christmas brought another explanation. Mother's Day brought another. Each event seemed small when viewed alone. Together, they formed a pattern that was suddenly impossible to ignore. Later that afternoon, Grace stopped by during a break and sat with me for a few minutes. She asked about my family, and I found myself talking about Ryan as a child. I described the science projects we built together on the kitchen table, the baseball games where I sat through summer heat for hours just to watch him play a few innings, the nights I stayed awake helping him study for exams. Grace listened quietly. When I finished, she smiled. "You sound very proud of him." I replied. The word surprised me. Was, not am, was. Grace did not react, but I noticed it. So did I. After she left, I stared out the window again. The parking lot below was busy with visitors arriving and departing. Some carried flowers. Others carried balloons. People made time for what mattered to them. The thought was simple, almost painfully simple. Ryan had not been prevented from coming. He had chosen something else. Understanding that distinction changed everything. Near evening, my phone rang. Ryan's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. His voice sounded cheerful, almost casual. He asked how I was feeling and whether the doctors were happy with the results. Then he spent several minutes talking about a business contact he had met recently. Not once did he mention the hospital. Not once did he explain his absence. I listened quietly. When the conversation ended, he said he would try to visit soon. Try. The word lingered after the call ended. I placed the phone back on the table and looked around the room. For days, strangers had cared for me with patience, attention, and kindness. The one person I had expected to be there had treated my recovery like an item on a checklist. As the room grew darker, another realization settled over me. The greatest disappointments in life rarely arrive in a single moment. They reveal themselves slowly, one choice at a time, until eventually the truth becomes impossible to overlook. 3 days later, the doctors informed me that I would be discharged before the weekend. Most patients would have celebrated the news immediately. I smiled and thanked them, but part of me felt strangely reluctant to leave. The hospital had become the first place in a long time where I felt seen rather than managed. Every morning, Someone asked how I was feeling and genuinely waited for the answer. Every nurse remembered small details. They knew how I liked my tea. They remembered that I preferred the window shade halfway open. They noticed when I seemed tired and when I seemed worried. Those things may sound insignificant, but loneliness has a way of teaching you the value of small kindnesses. On Thursday afternoon, Grace stopped by during her lunch break. She was not assigned to my floor that day, yet she still found a few minutes to visit. We talked about ordinary things again. Her father had recently retired. Her mother was learning watercolor painting. The conversation drifted naturally from one topic to another. At one point she laughed and said, "My parents keep pretending they do not need help with anything, but they still call me every week to fix something." I smiled. That means they trust you. The word stayed with me after she left. Trust. It was something I had given Ryan freely his entire life. I trusted him when he borrowed money to start a business years ago. I trusted him when he assured me certain investments were wise. I trusted him when he said family would always come first. Looking back, I realized trust had flowed in only one direction for a very long time. That evening, a man in a gray suit arrived at my room. Daniel Mercer, my attorney. I had known him for nearly 15 years. He carried a leather folder beneath one arm and greeted me warmly before sitting beside the bed. "I heard the surgery went well," he said. "I am glad to see you recovering." We exchanged a few pleasantries before he opened the folder. Inside were several documents I recognized immediately: estate records, property information, financial summaries. The paperwork represented a lifetime of careful planning. My home, investments, savings. The legacy Thomas and I had built together over decades of work and sacrifice. Daniel adjusted his glasses and reviewed a few routine matters. Then he paused. "There is one question I should ask while everything is current." I nodded for him to continue. "Your estate plan still lists Ryan as primary beneficiary for virtually everything. Are you comfortable leaving those arrangements exactly as they are?" The room became very quiet. Outside the window, evening sunlight reflected against nearby buildings. For several seconds, I said nothing. Not because I was confused, not because I needed more information. The truth was much simpler. For the first time in years, I was honestly considering the question. Daniel did not pressure me. He simply waited. I looked at the folder resting on my lap. Then I thought about the empty chair beside my hospital bed. I thought about the unanswered calls, the forgotten holidays, the photographs from the gala, the strangers who had shown compassion when family had chosen convenience. "I do not know," I finally said. Daniel closed the folder slowly. "That is a perfectly acceptable answer," he replied. After he left, I sat alone for a long time. The future had not changed yet. No decisions had been made. No documents had been altered. But something important had shifted inside me. For the first time, I was no longer asking what Ryan expected to receive from me. I was beginning to ask what he had actually earned. I returned home 2 days later. The house felt exactly as I had left it, yet somehow completely different. Sunlight still entered through the kitchen windows every morning. Thomas's photograph still rested on the bookshelf. The grandfather clock still marked each passing hour with quiet precision. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. Recovery occupied much of my time during those first weeks. I attended follow-up appointments, took short walks through the neighborhood, and gradually regained my strength. Ryan called occasionally. The conversations were polite, predictable, and strangely distant. He never mentioned missing the surgery. I never brought it up. Sometimes what people avoid saying reveals more than any explanation ever could. One afternoon, nearly 3 weeks after I returned home, Grace called unexpectedly. She had obtained my number through information I had voluntarily provided for post-discharge follow-up communications. She simply wanted to check on my recovery. We spoke for 15 minutes, then 20. Before long, our conversations became an occasional routine. She told me stories about her work. I told her stories about my late husband and the years we spent building our life together. During one conversation, she mentioned a fundraising project at the hospital. The facility was hoping to expand services for elderly patients who lacked family support. Many arrived alone. Some had no visitors at all during lengthy recoveries. Others struggled with transportation, housing, or follow-up care after discharge. As she spoke, images returned to me immediately. The empty chair beside my bed, the silent phone, the kindness of nurses who expected nothing in return. After the call ended, I found myself thinking about those patients. I wondered how many of them sat alone staring at doors that never opened. A week later, I attended a routine medical appointment at the hospital. Before leaving, I stopped by the nursing station to say hello to Grace. She introduced me to several colleagues. One nurse described helping an elderly veteran who had no surviving relatives. Another mentioned a widow recovering from treatment without a single visitor during her stay. Their stories stayed with me during the drive home. That evening, I sat at the dining room table reviewing financial documents. Years earlier, after Thomas passed away, I had organized everything carefully. The house was paid for. Investments were stable. Savings had grown steadily. My estate was worth approximately $1.8 million. Every document pointed toward the same conclusion. One day, everything would transfer to Ryan. For years, that outcome seemed obvious. Automatic. Natural. Yet now I found myself asking a question I had never seriously considered before. Why? Not because he was my son. I already knew that answer. The more difficult question was what values my estate would ultimately reward. I thought about responsibility, loyalty, presence, compassion. Then I thought about the people who had demonstrated those qualities when it mattered most. A few days later, Daniel Mercer called to check on my recovery. Before ending the conversation, he casually asked whether I had given any additional thought to our previous discussion regarding estate planning. I looked out the window toward the maple tree Thomas planted decades earlier. Its leaves moved gently in the afternoon breeze. Yes, I said quietly. I have been thinking about it quite a lot. There was a brief pause. Would you like to schedule a meeting? Daniel asked. I closed my eyes for a moment. The answer arrived with surprising clarity. Yes, I replied. I believe it is time. Daniel arrived at my house the following Tuesday afternoon, carrying the same leather folder I remembered from the hospital. We sat at the dining room table where Thomas and I had shared countless meals over the years. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust particles that drifted quietly through the air. For a few moments, neither of us discussed legal documents. We talked about recovery, health, and ordinary life. Eventually, Daniel opened the folder and placed several papers before me. There is no rush, he said. My job is simply to help you make decisions that reflect your wishes. I appreciated that. He was not trying to influence me. He was giving me space to think honestly. We reviewed every major asset together. The house, the investment accounts, the savings. The total value remained close to $1.8 million. For years, each document had pointed toward the same destination. Ryan. Seeing everything laid out so clearly felt strangely different now. Daniel asked careful questions. He wanted to understand my intentions rather than my emotions. That distinction mattered. Emotions change. Intentions endure. What matters most to you? He asked at one point. The question lingered in the room. I thought about it carefully. Several months earlier, I might have answered family without hesitation. Now the answer felt more complicated. Character, I said finally. Commitment. Being there when people need you. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. Those are reasonable values. After he left, I spent the next several weeks reflecting on that conversation. I visited the hospital twice for follow-up appointments. During those visits, I observed things differently than before. I noticed volunteers helping elderly patients find their way through confusing hallways. I watched nurses comfort anxious families. I saw staff members treat people with patience regardless of wealth, status, or background. One afternoon, Grace introduced me to a coordinator involved with expanding senior care services. She explained that many older patients faced recovery completely alone. Some lacked transportation. Others struggled with daily necessities after discharge. The hospital hoped to expand programs that could provide additional support. Listening to her felt personal. I understood that loneliness more than I wanted to admit. Several days later, I found myself sitting in my car in the hospital parking lot long after an appointment had ended. I watched people enter and leave the building. Some walked beside loved ones. Others walked alone. A realization settled over me with remarkable clarity. Legacy was not simply about passing money to the next generation. Legacy was about deciding where your life's work could continue creating something meaningful. That evening, I called Daniel. I am ready, I told him. We met again the following week. The process itself was straightforward. The significance was not. One document after another was reviewed carefully. Every decision was explained thoroughly. Nothing happened in anger. Nothing happened impulsively. I was calm, certain, at peace. When the final version was complete, the majority of my estate would eventually support the hospital's senior care initiatives and patient assistance programs. As I signed the paperwork, I felt neither satisfaction nor revenge. What I felt was relief. Years earlier, I had assumed Ryan would inherit everything because that was the expected path. Now I understood that expectation alone was not a reason. After the documents were finalized, Daniel gathered the papers neatly into his folder. Before leaving, he paused beside the door. "Are you comfortable with this decision?" he asked. I looked around the home Thomas and I had built together. Then I thought about the people who had shown kindness when I needed it most. "Yes," I answered. And for the first time since my surgery, the answer required no explanation at all. 2 years passed more quickly than I expected. Life settled into a quieter rhythm. My health remained stable, and I spent my days focusing on things that brought genuine peace rather than constant obligation. I volunteered occasionally, stayed in touch with a small circle of friends, and continued visiting the hospital from time to time. Each visit reminded me why I had made my decision. The staff never treated kindness as a transaction. They offered it freely. Ryan remained part of my life, but only in the way distant relatives sometimes remain connected through holidays and occasional phone calls. We spoke enough to maintain appearances, yet never enough to rebuild what had been lost. Strangely, I no longer felt angry about that. Acceptance had replaced disappointment. I stopped expecting him to become someone he had repeatedly shown me he was not. During those 2 years, I never mentioned the estate plan. Daniel never mentioned it either unless legal updates required a conversation. The documents remained private, exactly as I intended. Meanwhile, the hospital's senior care initiative continued expanding. Grace occasionally shared updates about new programs being developed for elderly patients recovering without family support. Every time I heard those stories, I felt reassured. The future value of my life's work would eventually help people facing circumstances I understood all too well. Then one spring morning, everything changed. Not dramatically, not suddenly. Simply through the passage of time that comes for all of us. My health began declining gradually. Doctors monitored several age-related conditions, and although there was no single crisis, I knew my journey was entering its final chapter. I spent those months putting affairs in order. Important documents were organized. Personal letters were written. Photographs were labeled for future generations. There was sadness in those tasks, but there was also dignity. One afternoon, while sorting old family albums, I found a picture of Ryan at 8 years old. He was standing beside a homemade science fair project, grinning proudly with missing front teeth and messy hair. I smiled as I held the photograph. Love does not disappear simply because someone disappoints you. That is what makes family heartbreak so complicated. I never stopped loving my son. I simply stopped allowing love to blind me. Several months later, surrounded by familiar comforts and professional care, I passed peacefully. What happened afterward was described to me later through documents, letters, and conversations I had carefully arranged in advance. Within days, Ryan and Vanessa were contacted regarding the formal estate proceedings. According to Daniel's records, both attended the scheduled meeting promptly. That did not surprise me. What happened next did not surprise me either. Daniel later noted that they arrived appearing confident and relaxed. After all, for many years they had every reason to believe the estate would transfer exactly as expected. The house, the investments, the savings, everything. They sat across from Daniel in his office while preliminary paperwork was reviewed. Routine legal procedures unfolded exactly as they do every day in offices across America. Then Daniel reached the final set of documents. The room reportedly became quieter. He informed them that a revised estate plan had been executed years earlier and remained fully valid. According to his notes, Ryan appeared confused at first. Vanessa asked several questions. Daniel answered each one calmly. Then he opened the final document and began reading the provisions that would reveal a truth neither of them had ever imagined. Daniel read the document carefully, line by line, exactly as legal procedure required. The majority of my estate, including the house, investments, and financial accounts, had been designated to support the hospital's senior care and patient assistance programs. According to the records, the room remained silent for several seconds after he finished. Ryan eventually asked whether there had been some kind of mistake. Daniel assured him there had not. Every document had been prepared properly, reviewed thoroughly, and executed years earlier while I was fully competent and in good health. Vanessa reportedly asked when the changes had been made. Daniel provided the date. It was shortly after my surgery. The significance of that timing was impossible to miss. Then Daniel removed one final envelope from the file. It contained a personal letter I had written long before. My instructions were simple. The letter was to be read aloud during the meeting. Daniel opened it and began. Ryan, if you are hearing this, it means I am gone. Before you continue listening, I want you to understand something. This letter was not written in anger. It was written after a great deal of reflection. I loved you from the day you entered this world, and I never stopped loving you. Nothing in this letter changes that. Daniel continued reading. For many years, I assumed that everything I built would one day belong to you. Not because you asked for it, not because you earned it, simply because you were my son. Then something happened that forced me to look honestly at the difference between expectation and reality. When I needed support most, you were somewhere else. The absence itself was painful, but what mattered more was what it revealed. It showed me a pattern I had ignored for years. The letter continued. This decision was never about punishment. It was about purpose. I asked myself where my life's work could do the most good after I was gone. The answer became clear. I chose people who dedicate their lives to helping others, including those who face illness, fear, and loneliness without family beside them. They gave me compassion when I needed it. They gave countless others the same gift. According to Daniel's notes, no one interrupted. The room remained quiet. He reached the final section. If you are disappointed, I understand. But disappointment can be a teacher. I hope you spend less time thinking about what you did not receive and more time thinking about the relationships that still remain in your life. Money can be inherited. Trust cannot. Presence cannot. Love cannot. Those things must be earned through choices made day after day. My greatest hope is that one day you understand the difference. Daniel finished reading and folded the letter carefully. The meeting concluded shortly afterward. What happened in the years that followed became part of the legacy I had hoped for. The hospital expanded services for elderly patients recovering alone. Transportation assistance increased. Additional support programs were created. More people received help during difficult moments in their lives. My name eventually appeared on a small plaque near one of the program offices, but that was never the point. The point was never recognition. The point was impact. If there is a lesson in my story, it is a simple one. Family is important. Love is important. But neither should require us to ignore reality. The people who stand beside us when life becomes difficult reveal who they truly are. In the end, I did not leave my legacy to the person I expected would receive it. I left it where I believed it would continue doing good long after I was gone. And for the first time in many years, that choice brought me complete peace.